My name is Gracie Morales. And I want to tell you something important before we begin. Sometimes the person who saves you is the person you save. Sometimes healing doesn't come from running away from pain. It comes from sitting next to someone else who knows what pain feels like. This is a story about grief and starting over, about a man who'd given up on living, and a little girl who refused to let him stay in the dark. This is a story about second chances, not the kind you see in movies, where everything is perfect and easy and wrapped up in a bow. But the real kind, the messy, complicated, I don't know if I deserve this kind, the kind where you have to give yourself permission to be happy again. Before we begin, I need to ask you something, and I really want you to comment your answer. Do you believe people who've lost everything can find love again? Do you believe it's okay to move forward when your heart is still scarred? Do you believe in second chapters? Because this story is about all of that. About a widowed man who was drowning in grief. About a divorced woman trying to rebuild. About a fence that separated two broken people. And about a 7-year-old girl who believed in hope when the adults had forgotten how. If you've ever felt stuck in your pain, this story is for you. If you've ever wondered if it's too late to start over, this story is for you. If you've ever needed permission to be happy again, this story is for you. So settle in, grab some tissues, and let me tell you about the house next door. Gerald Hayes lived in a house full of ghosts. Not the supernatural kind, the memory kind, the kind that whisper to you from every corner, every photograph, every piece of furniture that you can't bring yourself to move because moving it would mean accepting that she's really gone. He was 36 years old, a high school history teacher at Lincoln High in Asheville, North Carolina, and for the past 2 years, he'd been going through the motions of living without actually being alive. Every morning the alarm went off at 5:45 a.m. He'd wake up in the bed he used to share with his wife Diane. Her side was still made up exactly as it had been. Her pillow still had the case she'd picked out, soft gray with white flowers. Her reading lamp still sat on the nightstand. The book she'd been reading, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, still had the bookmark at page 247. She'd never finished it. She'd never finish anything again. Gerald would shower, dress in clothes he didn't really care about, make coffee he barely tasted. The house was a 1950s colonial, pale yellow with white trim, a front porch with a swing, a backyard with a fence that needed painting. 3 bedrooms upstairs. He used one. The second was still set up as Diane's home office, her desk covered with lesson plans she'd never teach. She'd been a 3rd-grade teacher. The kids had loved her. And the third bedroom? The third bedroom had a door that Gerald hadn't opened in 2 years. The nursery. Painted soft green because they hadn't wanted to know if they were having a boy or a girl. A crib they'd assembled together one Sunday afternoon, laughing as Gerald read the instructions wrong 3 times. A rocking chair Diane's mother had given them. A mobile with little stars and moons that Diane had spent an hour hanging at just the right height. Everything ready. Everything waiting. Everything that would never be used. Diane had been 8.5 months pregnant when it happened. A normal Tuesday. She'd been at school, teaching her students about butterflies, when the pain started. By the time Gerald got to the hospital, the doctors were rushing her into emergency surgery. Placental abruption, they said, life-threatening for both mother and baby. They tried everything. But sometimes, everything isn't enough. Diane died on the operating table. Their daughter, they'd planned to name her Lily, died minutes later, and Gerald's entire world ended. He took a month off work after the funeral, sat in the house, stared at walls, answered the door when people brought casseroles he didn't eat, let Diane's mother cry on his shoulder, even though he was the one who needed holding, planned a funeral for 2 people, buried his wife and daughter in matching white caskets, and then kept living, because what else was there to do? 2 years later, nothing had changed. He still wore his wedding ring. Still kept Diane's clothes in the closet. Still had her toothbrush in the holder next to his. Still set the table for 2 out of habit, then put the extra plate away. His colleagues at school worried about him. "Gerald, have you thought about talking to someone?" His department head, Patricia, asked gently one afternoon. "I'm fine," he'd say. "You're not fine," she'd reply. "And that's okay. But you need to process this." "I am processing it. It's been 2 years. Some things take longer than 2 years." He wasn't angry at the world. He wasn't bitter. He was just empty, going through the motions, teaching history to teenagers who didn't care about the Civil War, grading papers, going home to an empty house, eating dinner standing at the counter, falling asleep on the couch because the bed felt too big, waking up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat from dreams where Diane was alive and everything was okay, then remembering, always remembering. His friends had tried. His brother called every week, "Man, you need to get out. Come to Charlotte for the weekend. We'll go to a game, maybe next time," Gerald always said. His best friend from college, Marcus, invited him to a guy's trip, just golf and terrible jokes and no expectations. "Come on." "I don't think so, but thanks." His mother visited from Atlanta. "Baby, you're my son and I love you. But your wife wouldn't want this. She wouldn't want you frozen like this." "I know, Mama," he'd said quietly. "I know." But knowing and doing were two different things. The house next door had been empty for 6 months. The Johnsons, an elderly couple who'd lived there for 30 years, had moved to a retirement community in Florida. The for sale sign had been up since March. Gerald barely noticed it. Barely noticed anything. Until one Saturday morning in late September when a moving truck pulled up next door. Gracie Morales had $3,000 in her checking account, a 7-year-old daughter who deserved better, and a U-Haul full of furniture that she'd gotten in the divorce. Not much to show for 10 years of marriage. But it was a start. She stood in the driveway of her new house, a small blue ranch with white shutters, a front porch that needed work, and a backyard big enough for Emma to play in. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Hers and Emma's. No ex-husband to criticize the paint color. No in-laws dropping by unannounced to comment on her parenting. No walking on eggshells wondering what mood he'd be in when he got home. Just peace. Or at least the possibility of peace. "Mama, is this our house?" Emma asked, climbing out of the car with her backpack and her stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunks. "Yes, baby. This is our house. Forever?" Gracie's heart ached. Emma had asked that question about 3 different apartments in the past year as the divorce dragged on. "Forever," Gracie said firmly. "This is ours. Nobody can take it away." Emma smiled. A real smile, the first one Gracie had seen in weeks. "Can I pick my room?" "Of course. Go look inside. The door's unlocked." Emma ran up the porch steps, Mr. Trunks bouncing in her arms. Gracie watched her go, and felt tears prick her eyes. "We're going to be okay," she told herself. "We're going to be okay." The divorce had been brutal. Carlos, her ex-husband, had been a good man once. Or at least, she'd thought he was. They'd met in college, University of North Carolina. She was studying social work, he was in business school. He was charming, ambitious, full of big plans. They got married young, she was 23, he was 25. Had Emma a year later. And for a while, it was good. But somewhere along the way, Carlos changed. Or maybe he'd always been this way, and Gracie had been too young to see it. He became controlling. Questioned where she went, who she talked to. Criticized her clothes, her cooking, her parenting. Made her feel small. Told her she was lucky he'd married her. Told her she'd never make it on her own. And then, 2 years ago, he started an affair with a woman from his office. Didn't even try to hide it. When Gracie confronted him, he shrugged. "You've let yourself go, Gracie. What did you expect?" She'd been 32, working full-time as a social worker, raising their daughter, keeping the house, trying to be everything. And she'd let herself go. The divorce took 18 months. Carlos fought her on everything. Custody, money, the house. He wanted to give her as little as possible. Wanted to punish her for leaving. In the end, she got primary custody of Emma, a small settlement, and enough to put a down payment on this house. He got the big house in Charlotte, his freedom, and his new girlfriend who was 10 years younger and had no children. Gracie got a fresh start. And honestly, she'd take the fresh start any day. Now, standing in the driveway of her new house in a small town outside Asheville, Gracie felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there. Mama. Mama, come see. There's a window seat in this room. Gracie smiled and headed inside. The house was smaller than their old one. 2 bedrooms instead of 4. 1 bathroom instead of 2.5. A kitchen that needed updating. Hardwood floors that were scratched. But it had good bones. And more importantly, it had no bad memories. Every room was a blank slate. "This can be your room, baby," Gracie said, finding Emma in the smaller bedroom that looked out over the backyard. "With the window seat?" "With the window seat." Emma squealed and hugged Mr. Trunks. "Can we paint it purple?" "We can paint it whatever color you want." "Purple with yellow stars?" Gracie laughed. A real laugh. "Purple with yellow stars it is." They spent the afternoon unloading boxes. Well, Gracie unloaded boxes. Emma helped by unpacking her toys and arranging them very specifically on her new bedroom floor. By 4 p.m., Gracie was exhausted, sweaty, and surrounded by cardboard. She'd gotten the bed set up, barely, and found the box with the sheets. Emma's room looked like a tornado had hit it. But Emma was happy. That's what mattered. Gracie stood on the front porch, drinking water from a plastic cup, surveying the neighborhood. It was quiet. Tree-lined streets. Well-maintained houses. A few kids riding bikes at the end of the block. She could see a park in the distance. This was good. This was exactly what Emma needed. What they needed. That's when she noticed him. The man next door. He was standing in his driveway, checking his mailbox. Tall. Maybe 6 feet 1 inch. Black, with close-cropped hair starting to gray slightly at the temples. Broad shoulders. Athletic build. He wore jeans and a plain gray t-shirt. And he looked sad. Even from a distance, Gracie could see it in the way he carried himself. Shoulders slightly hunched. Head down. Moving slowly, like every action required tremendous effort. Their eyes met for a brief second. Gracie smiled and raised her hand in a friendly wave. "Hi, just moved in." He nodded once. Didn't smile. Didn't wave back. Just turned and walked back into his house, closing the door behind him. Okay then, Gracie thought. Guess we've got a grumpy neighbor. She'd dealt with worse. The first week passed quietly. Gracie focused on unpacking, enrolling Emma in the local elementary school, and starting her new job at the county social services office. She barely saw the neighbor. She'd see his car leave every morning around 6:30 a.m. and return around 4 p.m., like clockwork. He never looked over, never waved, just went about his business like she and Emma didn't exist. Emma, however, noticed everything. "Mama, there's a man next door," she said one evening, while they ate spaghetti at their small kitchen table. "I know, baby. He looks sad." Gracie paused, fork halfway to her mouth. "Why do you say that?" Emma shrugged, twirling pasta around her fork. His face. Like he's thinking about something that makes him sad all the time. 7 years old, and she could read people better than most adults. Maybe he is sad, baby. Some people are carrying heavy things we can't see. Like when you were sad after Daddy left? Gracie's throat tightened. Yeah. Like that. Did someone leave him too? I don't know his story, Emma. But we should be kind to him, okay? Even if he doesn't smile. Okay, Mama. The following Saturday, Emma was playing in the backyard. Gracie had bought her a small soccer ball, and Emma was kicking it around, giggling as Mr. Trunks played goalie propped against a tree. Gracie was inside, unpacking the last few kitchen boxes, when she heard Emma's voice through the open window. "Oh no. Mr. Trunks, stay there." Then silence. Then, "Mama. Mama." Gracie dropped the box and ran outside. "What's wrong?" Emma was standing at the fence that separated their backyard from the neighbors, pointing. "My ball went over." Gracie looked. Sure enough, the soccer ball had bounced over the wooden privacy fence into the neighbor's yard. "Oh, honey. Can you get it?" Gracie looked at the 6-foot fence. "I don't think I can climb that. Can you ask the man next door?" Gracie hesitated. The grumpy neighbor who hadn't said a single word to her in a week. But Emma's eyes were so hopeful. "Okay. Stay here. Gracie walked around to the front of the neighbor's house. Rang the doorbell. Waited. Nothing. Rang again. Finally the door opened. And there he was. Up close, he was even more handsome than she'd realized. Deep brown skin, strong jawline, eyes that were a warm amber brown. But those eyes were tired. So tired. He looked at her without expression. Yes? Hi. I'm Gracie. I moved in next door last week. I know. He didn't offer his name. Didn't smile. Just waited. My daughter was playing in the backyard, and her ball went over the fence. Would you mind? I'll throw it back. Oh, thank you so. But he'd already closed the door. Gracie stood there, blinking. Okay. He's not just grumpy. He's actively unfriendly. She walked back to the backyard where Emma was waiting by the fence. Did you get it? He said he'd throw it over. They waited. And waited. 5 minutes passed. Mama, I don't think... Suddenly, the ball came flying over the fence, landing at Emma's feet. Yay! Emma grabbed it, hugging it to her chest. Then she walked up to the fence and called out, "Thank you, mister." Silence from the other side. Emma tried again, louder. "Thank you for getting my ball." Still nothing. Emma looked at Gracie, confused. Why doesn't he answer? I don't know, baby. Maybe he's busy. But Gracie had a feeling it was more than that. That night, after Emma went to bed, Gracie sat on the front porch with a cup of tea. The neighborhood was quiet. Crickets chirping. A few porch lights glowing. She could see the neighbor's house from where she sat. Every light was off except one. A dim glow from what looked like the living room. She imagined him in there, alone, surrounded by whatever pain he was carrying. Emma was right. He did look sad. And Gracie, who'd spent years working as a social worker helping people through their darkest moments, recognized that particular brand of sadness. Grief. Deep, consuming grief. What happened to you? She wondered. But she didn't know. And he clearly had no interest in telling her. So she finished her tea and went inside, locking the door behind her. Deciding that she'd respect his space. She had enough to deal with without trying to fix a stranger. But Emma had other plans. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had a neighbor who changed your life? Or have you ever been the grumpy neighbor who needed someone to break through your walls? Leave a comment and tell me your story. And please, subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. We're sharing real, heartfelt stories about healing, hope, and second chances. Hit that subscribe button. You won't regret it. Now, let's get back to Gracie, Emma, and Gerald. Emma Morales had decided that the sad man next door needed a friend, and if he wouldn't talk, she'd find another way. It started on a Monday afternoon. Gracie picked Emma up from school, and instead of running inside to play, Emma went straight to her room. Homework? Gracie called. Drawing? Emma called back. Gracie smiled. Emma had always loved to draw, just like Gracie had when she was little. She let her daughter be, making dinner while Emma worked on whatever project had captured her attention. An hour later, Emma emerged from her room with a piece of paper. She'd drawn a picture in crayon, a big yellow sun, a house, and 3 stick figures. A tall one labeled Mr. Man Next Door, a medium one labeled Mama, and a small one labeled Me plus Mr. Trunks. All 3 figures were smiling. That's beautiful, baby. Want to put it on the fridge? No. Emma said seriously. I want to give it to him. To who? The man next door. Gracie hesitated. Honey, I don't think. He needs it, Mama. He's sad. This will make him happy. How do you argue with that logic? Okay. But we'll knock on his door and give it to him properly. No, Emma said. I want to surprise him. Before Gracie could stop her, Emma ran to the backyard. Gracie followed, arriving just in time to see Emma carefully fold the drawing and slide it under the fence into the neighbor's yard. Emma. He'll find it, Emma said confidently. And it'll make him smile. Gerald found the drawing that evening when he let himself out the back door to take out the trash. At first, he thought it was litter, a piece of paper that had blown into his yard. He bent to pick it up, planning to throw it away. Then he unfolded it. And stopped. A child's drawing. Crayon sun. Stick figures. The words, Mr. Man Next Door, in careful wobbly letters. He stared at it for a long moment. When was the last time someone had given him a drawing? When was the last time someone had thought about him at all, beyond the obligatory "how are you at work?" Something twisted in his chest. He didn't know what to do with it. So he took it inside, and set it on the kitchen counter, where it sat, bright and cheerful, in his gray house. The next day, there was another one. This time, a rainbow with the words, "Have a nice day." Gerald stood in his backyard, holding the drawing, looking at the fence. He could hear the little girl playing on the other side, singing to herself, talking to her stuffed animal. Pure, uncomplicated joy. He hadn't heard that sound in 2 years. By the end of the week there were 5 drawings. Each one slid carefully under the fence. Each one bright and hopeful and insistent. Gerald didn't know what to do with them. But he couldn't throw them away. So he put them on the refrigerator, next to the wedding photo magnet of him and Diane, next to the ultrasound picture of Lily. And for the first time in 2 years there was color in his kitchen. The washing machine broke on a Thursday night. Gracie had just put in a load of Emma's school clothes when she heard the noise. A loud grinding, then a clunk, then silence. Then water. So much water. No, 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 Gracie muttered, running to the laundry closet. Water was pouring out from under the machine, flooding across the tile floor, heading toward the carpeted hallway. "Emma, get your feet up." Emma, who'd been playing in the living room, scrambled onto the couch. "What's happening?" "The washing machine broke." "Stay there." Gracie grabbed every towel she could find, throwing them on the floor, trying to soak up the water, but it was too much. The water kept coming. She turned off the water valve behind the machine, at least she knew how to do that. But the damage was done. The entire laundry closet was flooded. Water had seeped into the hallway. The carpet was soaked. And Gracie had no idea how to fix a washing machine. She called the landlord. No answer. Left a message. Called again. Voicemail. She sat on the floor surrounded by soaked towels and felt tears of frustration building. This was too much. She couldn't afford a plumber right now. She couldn't afford to replace the carpet. She'd just spent every penny she had on the move, on deposits, on getting Emma set up in school. And now this. "Mama, are you crying?" Gracie looked up. Emma was standing in the doorway, Mr. Trunks in her arms, her face worried. "No, baby. I'm just frustrated." "Is the house broken?" "Just the washing machine. Can we fix it?" "I don't know how." Emma thought for a moment. Then, maybe the man next door knows how. "Emma, I'm not going to bother." "Mama, you always say we should ask for help when we need it." Gracie stared at her 7-year-old daughter. Who was right? Who was painfully, absolutely right? "Okay," Gracie said, standing up. "Okay." She walked next door, Emma trailing behind her. Rang the doorbell. Waited. The door opened. Gerald stood there, same tired expression. "Yes? I'm so sorry to bother you," Gracie said quickly. "But my washing machine just flooded my house, and I don't know how to fix it, and my landlord isn't answering, and I just..." She stopped, realizing she was rambling. Gerald looked at her. Then at Emma, who gave him a small wave. Then back at Gracie. "You need help?" he asked. "If you know anything about washing machines, I would be so grateful." He sighed, a deep heavy sigh that spoke of a man who really didn't want to get involved. But then he said, "Let me get my tools." 20 minutes later, Gerald was on his knees in Gracie's laundry closet, water soaking his jeans, examining the washing machine. "When did you get this?" he asked. "It came with the house. It's ancient, the drum bearing is shot. That's what made the noise. And the drain hose came loose, which is why it flooded. Can you fix it?" Gerald was quiet for a moment, assessing. "The hose, yes. The bearing, you'd be better off getting a new machine." Gracie's heart sank. Gerald must have seen it on her face because he added quickly, "But I can patch it enough to work for a while. Give you time to save up." "Really?" "Yeah, thank you." "God, thank you so much." Gerald worked in silence, while Gracie and Emma watched from the doorway. Emma kept trying to make conversation. What's your name, Mr. Gerald? I'm Emma. That's my elephant, Mr. Trunks. Mm-hmm. Do you like elephants? They're fine. Do you have any kids? Gracie's heart stopped. Gerald's hands froze on the wrench. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, very quietly, no. Do you want kids? Emma, Gracie said gently. Let Mr. Gerald work. But the damage was done. Gerald's entire body had gone tense. His jaw was tight. Gracie could see the pain written across his face. He did have a child, she realized. Or was going to. And something happened. Her social worker instincts kicked in. She recognized trauma when she saw it. Emma, go to your room for a bit, okay? But now, please. Emma left, sensing the shift in mood. Gracie knelt down next to Gerald. I'm sorry. She doesn't know. It's fine, Gerald said shortly. It's not fine. I can see it's not. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I don't. But I know pain when I see it. Gerald looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression cracked. Just slightly. I had a daughter, he said quietly. She died. Before she was born. Her mother, my wife, died too. Gracie's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God. Gerald, I'm so. It was 2 years ago. I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. Anyone could see that. Thank you for helping me, Gracie said softly. You didn't have to. Your kid was crying. I could hear it through the wall. So he'd come for Emma. Not for Gracie. For a child's tears. She's sensitive, Gracie explained. Her dad left us, cheated, then bailed. She's been through a lot. Gerald nodded, understanding in his eyes. She's lucky to have you. You'd be good with kids, Gracie said. I can tell. I'm not good with anything anymore. He stood up, packing his tools. Machine should work for now. But seriously, start saving for a new one. I will. Thank you. Can I pay you? No. Are you sure? I could at least make you dinner or... I'm sure. He walked to the door. Paused. Turned back. Your daughter. The drawings. Oh God. Has she been bothering you? I told her to stop. No. Gerald interrupted. They're nice. Tell her I said thank you. Then he left. Gracie stood in her hallway, wet towels everywhere, and felt something shift. The wall around Gerald had cracked. Just slightly, but it was a start. Okay, I need to know, leave a comment right now. Do you think Gerald is ready to let someone in? Or is it too soon? What would you do in Gracie's position? And if this story is touching your heart, please subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. We tell stories about real love, real healing, and real second chances. Hit that subscribe button. We've got so much more to share. Now let's see what happens next. 2 weeks after the flood, Emma came home from school with a flyer. Mama, look. Gracie read it. Donuts with Dad. Friday, October 15th, 7:30 a.m. Celebrate the special men in your life. Dads, grandfathers, uncles, and father figures, welcome. Her heart sank. Baby, you know your dad probably can't make it. He lives in Charlotte and... I don't want Daddy to come, Emma said matter-of-factly. I want to ask Mr. Gerald. Emma, no. He's our neighbor, not family. You said father figures count. And he fixed our washing machine. That doesn't mean... Please, Mama. Everyone will have someone. I don't want to be the only one without a dad. The words hit Gracie like a punch to the chest. That evening, Gracie stood on Gerald's porch for the 3rd time. This was getting ridiculous, but Emma had begged. Had looked at her with those big brown eyes full of hope. And Gracie couldn't say no. She rang the bell. Gerald answered, looking surprised to see her. Hi, Gracie said. I'm sorry to bother you again. What's wrong? Another flood? No, nothing like that. Emma's school is having a Donuts with Dad event on Friday morning, and her father won't be there, and she asked if maybe you'd consider... She trailed off, seeing Gerald's face go carefully blank. She wants me to go? I told her it was too much to ask. I told her you barely know us. But she insisted I ask, so I'm asking, and you can absolutely say no. I completely understand. Gerald was quiet for a long moment. I can't, he finally said. Of course. I understand. I have to teach. It's fine, Gerald. Really. Tell her I'm sorry. I will. Gracie turned to leave. Gracie. She looked back. Gerald's expression was conflicted. I'm not good with kids. Not anymore. I wouldn't know what to say to her. You don't have to say much. Just being there would mean everything. What if I make things worse? You won't. He looked so lost standing there in his doorway. Think about it, Gracie said gently. If you change your mind, it's at 7:30 Friday morning at Oakwood Elementary. Friday morning, Gracie drove Emma to school, dreading the conversation. Is Mr. Gerald coming? Emma asked from the back seat. Honey, I don't think so. He has to work. Oh. Emma's voice was so small. So disappointed. Baby, I'm sorry. We can do something special this weekend. Just you and me. It's okay, Mama. I understand. But Gracie could see the tears Emma was trying to hold back. They walked into the cafeteria where the event was being held. Tables were set up with donuts, juice boxes, coffee. Everywhere Gracie looked, there were fathers. Dads in suits who'd come before work. Dads in jeans and flannel. Grandfathers with gray hair. Uncles making kids laugh. And Emma, holding Gracie's hand, looking around at all of them. Mama, can you stay? Emma whispered. Of course, baby. They sat at an empty table in the corner. Emma picked at a donut she wasn't eating. Gracie's heart was breaking. Emma? Emma Morales? They both looked up. A teacher was standing there with a clipboard. Yes? Emma said quietly. There's someone here for you. What? And then Gracie saw him. Gerald? Walking through the cafeteria doors in khakis and a button-up shirt, looking completely out of place and uncomfortable. But he was there. Emma's face lit up like the sun. Mr. Gerald. She jumped up and ran to him. Gerald froze as Emma hugged his waist. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, carefully, he put a hand on her head. Hi, Emma. You came. You came. Yeah. I came. They sat at the table, Gerald, Emma, and Gracie. Emma talked non-stop, showing Gerald her drawings in her backpack, telling him about her teacher, her friends, what she was learning in school. Gerald mostly listened. But, occasionally, he'd ask a question. What's your favorite subject? Art. I love drawing. Like the pictures I give you. I know. I kept them all. Emma beamed. Really? Really? Gracie watched this man, this grieving, broken man, trying so hard to be present for a little girl he barely knew. And she felt something in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. Not attraction exactly. Though he was undeniably handsome. But something deeper, recognition. She saw him. The real him beneath the walls. And she suspected he was worth knowing. After donuts, the kids did a craft, decorating picture frames with their dads. Emma and Gerald sat side by side, gluing foam stickers onto cheap wooden frames. You're really good at this, Emma said, watching Gerald carefully place a star sticker. I used to be a teacher, Gerald said. Well, I still am. But I mean, I used to do crafts with my wife. She taught 3rd grade. Where is she now? Gracie tensed, ready to intervene. But Gerald answered calmly. She died. A couple years ago. That's so sad, Emma said seriously. Do you miss her? Every day. My daddy left. That's different than dying, but it still hurts. Gerald looked at this tiny, wise 7-year-old. Yeah, he said quietly. It does. But we're gonna be okay, Emma said with certainty. Mama says we're survivors. Your mama's right. When the event ended, Gerald walked them to Gracie's car. Thank you, Gracie said. You have no idea what this meant to her. She's a good kid. She is. And you're good with her. Gerald shook his head. I don't know about that. I do. Emma popped her head out the car window. Mr. Gerald, can you come to dinner at our house, please? Emma, Gracie started. But Gerald surprised them both. Okay, he said. Really? Emma squealed. Really? Tomorrow night? Gerald looked at Gracie, who nodded. Tomorrow night, he confirmed. Saturday evening, Gerald stood on Gracie's porch with a bottle of wine and a sense of dread. What was he doing? He didn't do dinners. He didn't do social interactions. He barely did existing. But he'd said yes. And he couldn't take it back. Not after seeing Emma's face light up. Gracie opened the door wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She smiled, a real, warm smile. Come in. Fair warning, Emma has told me 17 times that you're coming and made me promise we'd make the best dinner ever. No pressure then. She laughed. And Gerald realized it was the first time he'd heard her really laugh. It was a nice sound. Dinner was simple. Spaghetti and meatballs, garlic bread, salad. But Emma had insisted on setting the table fancy with a tablecloth and cloth napkins. She'd even drawn a menu in crayon, Emma's restaurant, tonight's special, sketty. Sketty? Gerald asked, amused despite himself. Spaghetti, Emma explained seriously. But sketty is more fun to say. They ate, and somehow, conversation came easier than Gerald expected. Emma asked him about teaching. What do you teach? History. High school. Is it boring? Emma. Gracie scolded. But Gerald smiled. A small smile but genuine. Sometimes. But history is just stories about people. And people are never boring. What's your favorite story? Gerald thought about it. The story of the civil rights movement. About people who stood up for what was right, even when it was hard. Even when it was dangerous. Like heroes? Exactly like heroes. After dinner, Emma went to her room to play, leaving Gerald and Gracie alone at the table. Gracie poured them both more wine. Thank you for coming, she said. Emma's been talking about it all day. She's easy to talk to. She likes you. I don't know why. I'm not exactly friendly. You came to donuts with Dad, that's pretty friendly. Gerald was quiet for a moment. I almost didn't. What changed your mind? He took a breath. I was sitting in my car outside the school, telling myself I should just go to work, that it was too hard, that seeing all those dads with their kids would hurt too much. But then I saw this little girl, couldn't have been more than 6, walking in with her grandfather. And she looked so happy. And I thought, my daughter will never have that. She'll never walk into school with me. She'll never have breakfast with her dad. She'll never have any of it. His voice cracked. And then I thought, but Emma doesn't have her dad either. And maybe I can't be a father to my daughter, but I could show up for someone else's. Just this once. Gracie reached across the table and took his hand. It was an impulsive gesture. But it felt right. That's one of the kindest things anyone's ever done for us, she said quietly. Gerald looked at their hands. He should pull away. But he didn't. Can I tell you something? Gracie asked. Okay. When Carlos left, I was devastated. Not because I loved him. I'd stopped loving him years before. But because I felt like I'd failed. Failed at marriage. Failed at giving Emma a complete family. Failed at everything. She paused. But sitting here now, with you, I realize something. Emma doesn't need a complete family in the traditional sense. She needs love. She needs safety. She needs people who show up for her. Like you. Gerald said. And like you. Can I ask you something? Gerald said. Of course. How do you do it? How do you keep going after everything falls apart? Gracie considered the question. I don't have a choice. Emma needs me. So I get up every day and I try. Some days are better than others. But I try. What about the days when trying isn't enough? Then I let myself fall apart for a little bit. And then I get back up. Gerald was quiet for a long time. Then, my wife died giving birth to our daughter. They both died. And I don't know how to get back up from that. I don't think you're supposed to get back up from that, Gracie said gently. I think you're supposed to learn to live with it. To carry it. But maybe you don't have to carry it alone. I've been alone for 2 years. I know. But you're here now. Having dinner with us. That's not alone. They talked for hours after Emma went to bed. About loss. About starting over, about the weight of grief and the possibility of joy, about Diane and how much Gerald missed her, about Carlos and how little Gracie missed him, about Emma and her big heart, about teaching and social work, and finding meaning in helping others. When Gerald finally left, it was past midnight. He stood on Gracie's porch, hands in his pockets. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "Thank you for coming. Can I come back sometime?" Gracie smiled. "Any time. You're always welcome here." Gerald walked back to his house. And for the first time in 2 years, it didn't feel quite so empty. I want to know what you think. Is Gerald ready to heal? Can love grow between two broken people? Leave a comment with your thoughts. And please, if this story is resonating with you, subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. We share stories about hope, healing, and the courage it takes to love again. Hit that subscribe button. We're just getting to the good part. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Gerald started coming over more often. At first, it was just for Emma. He'd help her with homework at the kitchen table while Gracie made dinner. He'd taught her about the Revolutionary War using her toy soldiers. He'd drawn maps with her, explaining how explorers found new lands. Emma soaked it up. And Gerald came alive teaching her. Then it became Saturday morning coffee. Gerald would bring donuts from the bakery downtown. They'd sit on Gracie's porch, Gerald, Gracie and Emma, and talk about nothing and everything. Emma would tell elaborate stories about her stuffed animals. Gracie would talk about difficult cases at work, without names of course. Gerald would share stories about his students, the ridiculous things they said, the small victories. It was easy, comfortable, normal. And somewhere in those Saturday mornings and homework sessions and casual conversations, Gerald realized something terrifying. He was falling for Gracie. It hit him one evening in mid-November. He was at her house, helping fix a loose cabinet door in the kitchen. Emma was at the table doing a drawing. Gracie was making tea, humming softly to herself. And Gerald looked around at this scene, this domestic, ordinary, beautiful scene, and felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Happiness. He was happy. Standing in Gracie's kitchen with a screwdriver in his hand, listening to Emma chatter and Gracie hum. He was happy. And the realization terrified him. Because being happy felt like betrayal. Diane had been dead for 2 years. Their daughter had been dead for 2 years. And here he was, happy in another woman's kitchen. Falling for another woman. Caring about another child. What kind of person did that make him? The guilt crashed over him like a wave. He finished fixing the cabinet, made an excuse about needing to go home, and left. Gracie looked confused, but didn't push. "See you Saturday?" she asked. "Maybe. I'll let you know." Saturday came. Gerald didn't show up. Gracie texted, "Everything okay? We missed you this morning." He didn't respond. Sunday passed. Monday. Tuesday, no Gerald. No texts. No response. Emma was worried. "Mama, did we make Mr. Gerald mad?" "No, baby. I think he's just busy. But he always comes on Saturdays." "I know. Maybe he needed some time to himself." But Gracie knew it was more than that. She'd seen the panic in his eyes when he'd left. She recognized it. The guilt of moving forward. The fear of being happy after loss. She'd felt it herself when she'd first laughed after the divorce. The immediate thought, "I shouldn't be happy. I should still be devastated." She gave him space. A week. Then, 2. But Emma kept asking. And Gracie kept wondering. 3 weeks after Gerald stopped coming over, his late wife's mother came to visit. Patricia Hayes arrived on a Saturday afternoon with a casserole and concern in her eyes. "Gerald, baby, you need to eat," she said, putting the casserole in his fridge alongside the other casseroles that various people had brought and that he hadn't touched. "I'm eating, Mama Patricia." She turned and looked at him with that mother's gaze that sees through every lie. "No, you're not. You're disappearing again." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You were getting better. I could see it. And now you're back in that dark place." They sat in the living room. Patricia looked around at the house that hadn't changed in 2 years. Gerald, I need to say something and I need you to hear me. Okay. Diane wouldn't want this. Gerald's jaw tightened. You don't know what she'd want. I know my daughter. And I know she loved you more than anything in this world. And she would be heartbroken to see you like this. I can't just move on, Mama Patricia. I can't just forget her. Who said anything about forgetting? Patricia took his hands. That little girl next door. Emma. You've been spending time with her, haven't you? Gerald looked away. How did you know? Your brother told me. He said you seemed happier, said you were smiling again. And then I stopped. Why? Gerald's voice broke. Because it felt like betraying Diane. Being happy. Caring about someone else. How can I do that when my wife and daughter are dead? Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Oh baby. Love isn't betrayal. Love is the opposite of betrayal. But Diane is gone. And I miss her every single day. But you're still here, you're still alive. And she would want you to live. I don't know how. Patricia stood up. Come with me. She walked upstairs. Gerald followed. She stopped in front of the nursery door. The door that hadn't been opened in 2 years. Open it, she said. I can't. You can. And you need to. Mama Patricia, please. Gerald. Open the door. His hand shook as he reached for the handle. The door creaked open. And there it was, exactly as they'd left it. The crib with the soft green bedding. The rocking chair. The mobile with stars and moons. The stuffed animals lined up on the shelf. The changing table with diapers they'd never use. The name spelled out in wooden letters above the crib, Lily. Gerald's knees gave out. He sat on the floor and sobbed. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place he'd kept locked away. Patricia sat beside him, holding him. Let it out, baby. Let it out. They sat there for a long time. When Gerald finally stopped crying, Patricia spoke. Diane decorated this room with so much love, so much hope. Do you know what she told me? Gerald shook his head. She said, Mama, I can't wait to see Gerald as a father. He's going to be amazing. He's going to love this baby so much. That's what she wanted for you. To be a father. To love a child. But not hers. No, not hers. But does that mean you can never be what she hoped you'd be? Gerald looked around the nursery. There's a little girl next door, Patricia said softly. Who doesn't have a father. Who lights up when she sees you. Who draws you pictures. And her mother. I'm guessing she's special too. She is. Then why are you hiding here? Because I'm scared. Of what? Of losing them too. Of caring and having it all fall apart again? Patricia cupped his face. Gerald, life is risk, love is risk. But the alternative is this, sitting alone in a house full of ghosts. Is that really what Diane would want? No. Then go. Go next door, apologize for disappearing. And let yourself be happy. That night, Gerald stood in the nursery for a long time. He picked up the stuffed elephant from the shelf, a gray elephant with pink ears that Diane had loved. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you, he whispered to the empty room. Both of you. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. The room was silent. But in that silence, Gerald felt something he hadn't felt before. Peace. Not closure, but permission. Permission to live. Permission to love again. Permission to be happy. He took the stuffed elephant with him as he walked downstairs. Tomorrow, he'd go next door. Tomorrow, he'd try. But tonight, he'd finally said goodbye to the version of his life that had died 2 years ago. Leave a comment. Do you think Gerald is making the right choice? Should he open his heart again? Or is it too soon? I want to hear from you. And please, subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. We're almost to the end, and you won't want to miss how this story ends. Hit that subscribe button. Let's finish this together. Sunday evening, Gerald walked next door. It had been 3 weeks since he'd last spoken to Gracie. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of her giving him space he didn't deserve. He knocked on the door. Emma answered. Mr. Gerald? She hugged him immediately, and Gerald felt his heart break and heal at the same time. "Hi, Emma. Where have you been? I missed you so much." "I'm sorry, kiddo. I had some things I needed to figure out." "Did you figure them out?" "I think so." Gracie appeared in the hallway. When she saw Gerald, her expression was careful, guarded. "Hi," he said. "Hi. Can we talk?" She looked at Emma. "Baby, go play in your room for a bit, okay? But now, please." Emma reluctantly left, but not before giving Gerald another hug. Gracie stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. They stood in the evening light, not quite looking at each other. "I'm sorry," Gerald said. "For what?" "For disappearing. For not responding to your texts. For being a coward." Gracie leaned against the porch railing. "You want to tell me what happened?" Gerald took a breath. "I was happy, here, with you and Emma. And it terrified me, because being happy felt like betraying my wife, like I was forgetting her and our daughter." "Gerald, let me finish. Please." She nodded. "I ran. I shut down. I went back to my empty house and my grief because that felt safer. Because I know how to be sad. I've been sad for 2 years. But being happy? I don't know how to do that anymore." "What changed?" Gracie asked quietly. "My mother-in-law came to visit. She made me open the nursery door, the room I've kept sealed for 2 years because I couldn't face it." He pulled the stuffed elephant from his jacket pocket. "This was going to be my daughter's. Diane bought it before everything." Gracie's eyes filled with tears. "And I realized," Gerald continued, "that I've been so focused on what I lost that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. A chance. Not to replace what I lost, I could never do that. But to build something new. Gracie, I'm falling in love with you." She looked up, startled. "I'm falling in love with you," he repeated. "And with Emma. And that terrifies me. Because what if I lose you too? What if I let myself care, and everything falls apart again?" "Gerald, but I can't keep living in fear. I can't keep hiding in a house full of memories. My wife wouldn't want that. My daughter wouldn't want that. And I don't want that." Gracie stepped closer. "I'm scared too," she admitted. "My ex-husband destroyed my self-worth, made me feel like I wasn't enough. And even though I know intellectually that wasn't true, there's still a part of me that's afraid. That thinks if I let someone in, they'll leave. They'll hurt me. They'll hurt Emma. I would never." I know that. But fear isn't logical." They stood there, 2 broken people on a porch, surrounded by the ghosts of their pasts. "So, what do we do?" Gerald asked. Gracie reached out and took his hand. "We try, we take it slow, we're honest with each other, and we see what happens. What if I mess this up? Then we figure it out together." Gerald looked at their intertwined hands. "I bought this for Emma." He held out the stuffed elephant. "I know it was meant for Lily, but I think Diane would want Emma to have it. If that's okay with you?" Gracie's tears spilled over. "That's more than okay. That's beautiful. Can I kiss you?" Gerald asked quietly. "I was wondering when you'd ask." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind. But she didn't. Their lips met, soft, tentative, full of promise. And when they pulled apart, both were smiling. The door burst open. "Are you guys kissing?" Emma stood there, eyes wide, grinning. Gracie laughed, wiping her tears. "Maybe. Does that mean Mr. Gerald is your boyfriend now?" Gracie looked at Gerald. He looked back. "Would that be okay with you?" Gerald asked Emma. "Yes, that would be the best." 6 months later, spring had arrived in North Carolina. The trees were blooming. The world was green and alive and full of possibility. Gerald and Gracie stood in the backyard, looking at the fence that separated their properties. "You're sure about this?" Gracie asked. "I'm sure." They'd hired a contractor to install a gate. A simple wooden gate that would connect their 2 yards, making it easy to go back and forth, to exist in both spaces, to build a life together while keeping their separate homes. Emma was ecstatic. Now Mr. Trunks can visit Mr. Gerald's yard whenever he wants. Mr. Trunks is very excited about that, Gerald said seriously. Emma giggled. Over the past 6 months, their relationship had grown slowly, carefully. Gerald came over for dinner 3 times a week. Gracie had a key to his house, and would sometimes leave surprise notes in his lunch. Emma spent Saturday mornings doing homework at Gerald's kitchen table while he graded papers. They'd gone on actual dates, to restaurants, to movies, to the park. Gerald had met Gracie's entire family. Gracie had met Gerald's mother and brother. Everyone loved them together. But more than that, they'd become a unit. When Emma got sick with the flu, Gerald took a day off work to help. When Gerald had a panic attack in the middle of the night, triggered by a nightmare about losing Diane, Gracie came over and sat with him until dawn. When Gracie's ex showed up drunk demanding to see Emma, Gerald calmly called the police and stood between Carlos and the door until they arrived. They showed up for each other, consistently, lovingly, imperfectly, but always trying. The nursery was no longer closed. Gerald had spent a weekend transforming it. He'd kept some things, the rocking chair, the mobile, a few stuffed animals. But he'd also added new things: a bookshelf full of children's books, an art table where Emma could draw, a cozy reading corner. It was now Emma's room at Gerald's house. And sometimes, when Emma stayed over on Friday nights, Gerald would read to her in the rocking chair and feel like maybe, just maybe, he was becoming the father Diane had hoped he'd be. Lily's stuffed elephant sat on Emma's bed. Emma had named it Lily. Because that was her name, right? Emma had asked Gerald when he gave it to her. Right. So now she's with me, and I'll take good care of her. Gerald had cried. Happy tears for once. The gate was installed on a Saturday. Emma insisted on a grand opening. She'd made a ribbon to cut, drew a sign that said the best gate ever, and invited half the neighborhood. Gracie's family came. Gerald's mother drove up from Atlanta. Some of their neighbors brought cookies. It was silly, and sweet, and perfect. When Emma cut the ribbon with safety scissors, everyone cheered. She ran through the gate, back and forth, back and forth. Look, I can go from Mama's yard to Gerald's yard, and back, and back. Gerald and Gracie stood on either side of the gate, watching her. She's going to wear herself out, Gracie said, laughing. Let her. She's happy. We're all happy. Gerald reached through the gate and took Gracie's hand. Yeah. We are. Later that evening, after everyone had left and Emma was in bed, Gracie and Gerald sat on his porch. The same porch where he used to sit alone. But now, Gracie was there, curled up beside him, her head on his shoulder. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me. For being patient. For showing me that it's okay to be happy again. Thank you for letting me in. For trusting me with your heart after everything you've been through. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling in for the night. Gerald? Yeah? I love you. It was the first time she'd said it. Gerald turned to look at her. Really look at her. This woman who'd moved in next door 6 months ago. This woman who'd been hurt, who'd been left, who'd been told she wasn't enough. This woman who'd rebuilt her life with grace and strength. This woman who'd brought light back into his darkness. I love you too, he said. And he meant it. Emma appeared at the door in her pajamas. I can't sleep. Can I sit with you guys? Of course, baby, Gracie said. Emma squeezed between them on the porch swing. Gerald wrapped one arm around Emma, the other around Gracie, and as they swung gently in the evening air, he thought about Diane, about Lily, about the life he'd lost. And he made peace with it. Not forgetting, never forgetting, but accepting that he could honor their memory while still living, while still loving, while still being the person they'd hoped he'd be. Tell me a story, Gerald, Emma said sleepily. What kind of story? A happy one, Gerald smiled. Once upon a time, there was a man who thought his story was over, and as he told the story, their story, Gracie squeezed his hand. Emma fell asleep against his chest, and Gerald realized something profound. His story wasn't over, it was just beginning. A new chapter, with new characters, and a happy ending he'd never expected but absolutely deserved. Thank you for spending this time with Gerald and Gracie's story. If this touched your heart, please leave a comment telling me, what was your favorite moment? And do me a favor. Subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. Because everyone deserves a story that reminds them it's never too late for a second chance. Everyone deserves to know that grief and joy can coexist. Everyone deserves to believe in love again. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story with someone who needs hope. And remember, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to carry your past with you. But it's also okay to open the gate and let someone new in. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep believing in second chances.